Hello, my name is Jamal Johnson. It is 4:49 a.m. on April 30th, 2015, and I'm doing this video because I feel pushed by God to do this video. I wish I had a more refined delivery for you this morning, but I don't. Okay, I just was kicked out of bed this morning by the Spirit of True Father, by the Spirit of God, and I'm going to share my testimony of things that have been happening, centered on the number 23, 46, and 92. It really all got started a few weeks ago. My children started telling me, "Dad, we see the number 23 everywhere. We see it on the clock. Every time we turn to look at what time it is, it's like 4:23 or 3:23 or 10:23 or 9:23, and always when we look at the clock, it's 23 minutes after the hour." So I'm like, yeah, kids, I've had that experience. Many times I never knew or figured out what it meant. And we started sharing, and that's that. And if you've had this kind of experience, you know what it is, and you know maybe sometimes you do figure it out, and sometimes you don't. You don't know whether or not to play lottery numbers or something on those on that. You don't know what to do, but it's happening. And at the very least, it makes you feel that there is a spirit world, or there is some kind of mysterious coordination that we don't understand. And yeah, so it's kind of cute when it starts happening. Okay, so one Sunday we're on the way to Sanctuary, and we're leaving. Takes us about, roughly 40 minutes, about 38 minutes. Okay, so we leave at the last possible minute to get to Sanctuary at 11. Service starts at 11, so we're going to time this new route that we're taking to the church. Okay, so we leave at 10:22 in the morning, and the kids start keeping track of the time. And when we're getting off the highway and we have to get onto one of the smaller state roads, as I'm exiting the highway, I say to my kids, "Hey, how long have we been on the road?" And they say, 23 minutes. "Oh my God, Dad, there's that number we're telling you about, 23. I'm like, "Oh, that's true." And then we all realize at the same moment that the state road that we're getting off the highway to enter is Route 423. Okay, so here's two hits on 23 right there. The whole family's there, and we're like, "Oh, snap! Oh, boy!" All right, so then I'm going to start moving fast now. All right, so that was that. Later that evening, we're watching a movie, Need for Speed. Now, in the movie Need for Speed, there comes this moment where the girl in the movie says to the guy as he pulls up in his car, she says to him, "You're 23 minutes late." And that time in the movie came precisely at 10:23 when I was coming into the living room to tell my kids that they had gone past their bedtime. Their bedtime is 10 o'clock. The moment I stepped into the room was 10:23, which is 23 minutes after my kids' bedtime, and I don't even open my mouth, and the TV is saying,
"You're 23 minutes late."
"You're 23 minutes late." That one character is saying in the broadcasting into the living room, "You're 23 minutes late." So I paused the video. I say, "You kids are gonna have to watch this video later. It's after bedtime," and the TV just said, "You're 23 minutes late." So my kids' jaws dropped open like, "Oh my gosh, that's spiritual. That's so spiritual." Okay, so this is still in the realm of cute, right? Okay. So then they go to bed, and of course, they try to stay up after bed after 10 o'clock the following day, like they didn't learn a daggone thing from it. Okay, so that was that episode. Now, there's a young lady that I was talking to at Sanctuary, and we were talking about doing a video on YouTube together, just kicking the idea around. And outside the Sanctuary Church, there's a pond, so she was watching her son, who was playing in the pond. And I started telling her about one time where I was meeting with a bunch of leaders of second generation in the church. How we were discussing the difference between first and second gen in the church. Okay? And story goes like this. Me and three of my buddies who, take care of second gen in some way, shape, or form, or who have taken care of them, who have some history of taking care of second generation. We were meeting in the church in Clifton a few years ago, and one brother told me that he didn't appreciate the agenda that I drafted up, because in the agenda, I was talking about the difference between first generation and second generation. Well, he thought that that was divisive. He thought that that was, well, whatever. He thought from some kind of external point of view, and he didn't appreciate it. And then I went on to explain, and he quit feeling like that after I explained. And what I said to him was, look, as second generation, you, sir, you come out of your mother's womb looking like something that God wanted to see. You look like something that God planned. Because you can say, and we know, that God was present when you were conceived. That God was there when you were conceived. That your parents are in a Trinity with God. And that the whole hope of you was present while you were conceived. Now, me being first gen, I can't say that. I did not come out of my mother's womb looking like something that God conceived. This is a very definition of child of Satan. That, we have ignorant parents who are spiritually dull, who don't see Satan as being present and in the driver's seat, authorizing through satanic lust and satanic motive and self-centered sexual desire and self-centered ego and self-centered romance. Through that agency, Satan claims the fourth position in the satanic four position foundation. He claims the child. He says, well, I was there. I put that sexual event together. I have copyright privileges. And so when I told this young man, you look like something that Satan, you look like something that God wanted to create from the moment you're born, and from the moment I'm born, I look like the scene of a crime. I look like stolen sperm and stolen egg. I look like something that Satan created. And he said, nah, Jamal, you shouldn't feel that way about yourself. And I'm like, why not? It's true. And I told him, the first time that I look like something that, you know, looks like what God wanted to create, the first time that I get the privilege of looking like, okay, something that God wanted to create, is when I stand next to my blessed wife that true parents blessed me with. Then I get to be and look like something. And me stops, actually. And us starts. The blessed couple starts. And me stops. Me ends. Me dies. Okay? So through the principle of leaving one's mother and father and cleaving unto one's spouse, Father is giving me a physical rebirth under the banner of God. Did he change my 46 chromosomes? No. But he created a new reality under his auspices. My 46 chromosomes, my wife's 46 chromosomes. Okay? So then while I'm telling this young lady at the pond all of this, she gets this chill, like a Holy Ghost chill. Especially at the point when I said, you came out of your mother's womb looking like something that God created. And at the time, she was pregnant. And she was, we didn't know it at the time, she was 6 or 7 days out from delivering her baby, which is pretty awesome. But even that baby is, third generation, blessed child. That baby is something that God wanted to see. And maybe this young woman got the significance of her own birth. Maybe that woman got the significance of being the vessel of God's creation, for her own child. I don't know. But she got that Holy Ghost chill, and she just like something came together for her. And then while that was happening for her, I was imagining the number 46 sort of spiritually tattooed on my chest, with my wife standing next to me, and she's got 46 on her chest. And being I'm a math guy, bam, this number pops up in my head immediately. And then I realized Father passed away at the age of 92. So I'm like, for 3 years I've been like, what's the significance of 92? What's it? I mean, we hear about providential numbers. Father passes away at 92. That's 2 40s and a 12. La 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 la. I've been thinking, what is the significance of 92? And this is my first hit on 92 being significant. And then I remember T.L. Barrett saying that Father is all about the matching. Like, and T.L. Barrett used to say in a few years back, in the 1999 or sometime like that, he used to say, if Father Moon could, he would bless those 2 light bulbs in the chandelier up there. Okay, he just wants to bring subject and object together, man and woman together. He wants to bless those 2 light bulbs up there if he could. And but because Father doesn't want to bring 2 light bulbs together, Father is fascinated, pushed to bring 46 chromosomes and 46 chromosomes together, because that gives God copyright privileges over all the 92 chromosomes that that couple has, and he gets to claim all the children that come from those relationships. And it's funny that even as I look on my camera, the camera is telling me that I got 3 hours and 23 minutes left of disk space. Okay, so when I tell you that 23 minutes, 23 has been happening over and over and over again. It's just been happening over and over again. So anyway, standing there by the pond, I hit on 92, and I run back in the church to tell Hyungjanim. Everybody had left, and when I told him, he said, "Man, what a word of God, what a word of God." And then I told him that my kids have been seeing the number 23 everywhere. And then I told him, I said, that's the number of chromosomes in the sex cell. That's the only thing I can think of right now. I mean, right now, as of today, the only thing I can think of about 23, given that I just had this experience out by the pond, is that 23 is the number of sex cells. 23 is the number of chromosomes in the sex cells. You know, each sperm has 23 chromosomes, and each egg has 23 chromosomes. So, and he goes, hey, maybe God is telling you to bless your kids. Now, you know, my oldest is 14, so I'm like, I wasn't really ready to think about that. But hey, now, 4 days later, I'm teaching an after-school program, and I'm doing an icebreaker with some young people. And that morning, I was researching the declaration where Father declared that Hyungjanim would be his be the heir. And that day that Father declared that was April 23rd, and I'm like, wow, there's that 23 again. 423. Now 423s sort of suggests the third generation grandparents. Why? Because it takes 4 sex cells to create your parents. 4 sex cells from your 4 grandparents create your parents, and then 2 sex cells from your parents create you. So 423 creates your parents, and 223s created you. But when you look at 423, okay, when you look at 423, that suggests the third generation back, okay, because it only takes 2 23s to make you, which suggests the relationship between 2 generations, and it takes 4 23s to make you when you consider the relationship between you and your grandparents, the third generation. So, you know, I had texted my friend that he was, anointed on 423, and I went to work. So now I'm at work, and I'm in this after-school program playing the icebreaker with these teenagers. They're not members of our church. But these kids were loving this game a lot, and we had to get down to business. So I said, we got to stop playing the game, folks, because we got to get down to business. And they said, no, we want to play this game. And then I said, look, we can't continue to play this game because we got to get down to work. Let me check the time and see how much further we can play. So I look on my phone to see what time it is, and guess what? Just right there at that moment, it's 4:23 p.m. So I'm like, okay, on the day that I realized that Hyungjanim was anointed on 4:23, or when Father declared him as a successor, saying that anybody else is a heretic and destroyer, it was 423, which I'm also realizing that day means 3 generations. Okay? Now, I told my students, okay, it's 423, we're going to go till 430, but do you know what 423 is, kids? And they're like, what? I said, never mind, just go home and kiss your parents, your grandparents. Kiss your grandparents. Tell them that you love them. All right? Now, all right, so we resume playing the game. And I look behind this student's head while we're playing this game. A few seconds after we resumed playing the game. And behind their heads was a blackboard. And right there, I'm looking at, on this blackboard, 4 circles. And inside each of the circles is the number 23. Yeah, you can't make this up. So I say stop, and then I'm looking at this blackboard, and I'm saying that's 423. And it had been from earlier that day a health class on the sex cells, and so they had written how a sperm cell in the testicles splits into 2 sperm, and how an egg cell splits into 2 eggs, and how these eggs remain in the ovaries, and how this ready sperm cells remain in the testicles until the time of ejaculation and conception happen. So anyway, there was 4 circles representing these sperm cells and egg cells, and I knew that that couldn't be a coincidence. So that's 3 hits on the number 423 in the same day. And so look, I'm hard-headed maybe, but I didn't do this video. I just thought it was cute, and I feel really bad about that because it just didn't stop. And it's not just for me that this is happening. This is not just to entertain me, and this is what I'm realizing. And anyway, my friend comes over, and my friend comes over after work that day, and I'm saying, do you know what happened to me today? And he's like, what? So I'm filling him in, and he doesn't think the numbers really mean anything. And, you know, this is not happening for him, so he has absolutely no emotional connection with this. So he's, just for my sake, he's like, oh, yeah. So he got the whole idea that 423s come from grandparents and 223s come from parents, from me and my wife. So he making this joke on his way out the door. He said, hey, just watch out for 223 tonight, because he knows we already have 6 kids and we're not trying to have any more kids, right? So that's this mathematical way of making a joke about my situation where my wife and I are not looking to have any more kids, you know. So he says, watch out for 223s tonight. So I'm like, ha ha ha. He goes out the door, and I go do this prayer condition for the unity of True Mother and Hyungjanim. Now, this is part of my prayer, and part of my prayer, I was talking about how people think that, you know, Hyungjanim and Mother, that they don't like each other or something. Oh, well, that Hyungjanim doesn't like his mother, and they keep saying stuff like that. And, you know, I know that's not true. But God told me to post a poem In this prayer, God told me to post this poem that I had written back in 2002 that was adopted in 2003 for a book being presented to Mother for her 60th birthday. So I incidentally, Mother is 23 years younger than True Father, right? So they put my poem in the book, and then they sent me a copy of the book. And when God told me, why don't you offer the brothers and sisters this poem, upload your poem to the Facebook group that I'm a part of. And at that moment, like I said, I have this thing for numbers, so I remembered the page number that my poem was placed on. And, here's the book that Mother was given on her 60th birthday, filled with members' poems. And here's the page that my poem is placed on. Okay, so as you can see, the poem is "Thank God Every Day for My Wife." Okay, and that poem was written on the night when my wife when she slammed the door in my face. We weren't having a good time, but oh, the glory of being denied. Because when you're denied, you really get to prove the absolute elements in your soul. It's when you're denied that you get to show that you have absolute love and absolute value. You hold something with absolute love, absolute value, when it returns nothing to you. And that's why I wrote that poem. And but here, my friend just walks out the door. We're laughing. He's making fun of me. He says, "Watch out for 223s." And God says, "Upload this poem." 5 minutes after I start this prayer, praying for Mother and Hyung Jin to get back together, and the page number that the poem is on is 223. So I call my friend and I say to him, I say, "Guess what just happened?" And he just got home. Takes him 20 minutes to get home. He had just gotten home. And he said, "What happened?" I said, 223. You said, "Watch out for 223." I start praying. God says, "Upload this poem." That poem is on page 223. He said, "Oh, boy." So that seemed to be it. Then the night before the blessing, my brother comes over. My brother's going to the blessing, which happened on April 21st, 9 days ago. And the night before, I'm telling my brother about these spiritual experiences with the number 423. And see, I had taken a picture of that blackboard with the 4 circles and the number 23. And when I picked up my phone to show him, I told him to look at this phone right now. And I said, "What time does that say?" And he said 2:23. It was 2:23 in the morning. So at the moment that I pick up the phone, it's 2:23. I'm not trying to do this. And it's like God is saying over and over and over again about 23. And we were taught by True Father that God wants to be there when a man and a woman make love. And as an abstinence teacher, I started teaching abstinence because of True Parents back in really 1997. And I haven't stopped, and most of my life in the church has been teaching abstinence. And I teach for free teens right now. And Dr. Panzer had been treated poorly when he wouldn't turn free teens over to the church. And Father later said that he's the only man, only one of two people in the church at the time who were fulfilling their responsibility. And as tribal messiahs and doing their responsibility for their nation and teaching purity. And this topic has gotten harsh treatment from so many of us. So many of us didn't feel comfortable with a Messiah that talks about sex. And we wish he would just clearly step forward and not have this problem and focus on what the other Messiah, Jesus, seemed to be speaking about, okay? Which is living for others, right? So we know that, Father said there are two pillars of the kingdom, living for others and absolute sex. And many of us, many of you, and I'm a little bit, to say the least, I'm a little bit upset with you, okay? Because I can feel your absolute resistance. I could feel it, and you would rather run off into the darkness of hell, which doesn't occur to you, because even the fact that you end up in hell when you resist this message of absolute sex, that doesn't occur to you. What occurs to you is that you're avoiding shame. You're avoiding discomfort. That's what occurs to you. But what doesn't occur to you is that the default position for you is that you continue to embrace hell, okay? So, we all know how much Father hammered absolute sex. And repeatedly for decades. Some of us knew better than him that he should not be talking about this. So, I am not ashamed of Father. I'm ashamed of you. I'm ashamed to call you my brother and my sister because of the way some of you have treated my father. Our Father, to be clear that God was there at our genesis, at our origin, to be clear that God was there is so empowering when Satan comes to tell us that we're nobody. When Satan comes into our life claiming to have position and authority and a right to be in our life, and to not know that our very root was written by God, is a very weak position. And the only thing that goes back to our origin, okay, and gives us original life and original love at our origin is absolute sex, the absolute sex of our parents. And absolute sex means that their 92 chromosomes are under the guidance of God, okay? And that only happens under the blessing of God. That only happens under the blessing of God. That God has your 92 chromosomes under his dominion and is able to create blessed children. And you don't want Father to talk about sex. You're very, very unenlightened if you're sitting in that position. You don't understand. It's not about you. It's not about Father keeping promises of purity that an ignorant Catholic Church or ignorant Christianity upheld for 2,000 years. Okay, Father's view of sex is not supposed to be what Catholics think it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be what Satan promised you it should be. So you can't say the Messiah doesn't treat the sex topic the way Satan promised you it should be taught. You can't hold Father, pin him down to keep a view of sex that makes you comfortable. And the view of sex that makes you comfortable was drafted by ignorant people who are basically Satan, comparatively, right? So that's exactly what many of us did. So Father passes at 92 in a way that makes us go, why 92? And let me tell you, I'm pretty sure it's Father organizing all these hits on 23, 46, and 92 so that we could understand, or so that I could be clear about how much it's not, see, it's not just me. It's not just my little relationship with the absolute sex message. Because there are very few members that I work with on this message. And all the rest of you, I'm talking about all my friends and all the church members that have gotten on my nerves. I'm talking about the good ones and the bad ones. Most of you don't touch this message. You don't try to bring this message to your community. That's like other people's responsibility. In your head, you treat that like that's other people's responsibility, not your family legacy. Okay, not something that you should be championing. And so the world crumbles around us because you're not bringing this message. I'm not bringing it to as many people as I should be bringing it to. And that's why I felt to get up and do this, because I feel God is pushing me, pushing me with this number over and over and over again. Okay, so I've never had an experience with numbers like this. It's just over and over and over again. And so anyway, the last hit was yesterday. Okay, so one brother, after Hyung Janem's sermon from last Sunday, Hyung Janem did a sermon on having sex with Father, sending our wife, making love to our wife as if Father was with us as husband, and our wife being able to commune with the absolute man, the absolute God. And we were taught by true parents that God wanted to descend into Adam so that he could get his hands on Eve. Well, we're supposed to actually let that happen, okay? Get out of the way, get our ego out of the way, and let that happen. So there's this one brother who's not particularly positive towards Hyungjanim, but when he saw the video, you know, he and his wife decided to put away years of mutual celibacy. And they decided to resume having sex because they realized that this is for God. Now, I know that that relationship has been a frustration for their children. Children really do come from our love, and when they watch the way you have give and take, they're affected. So I'm very happy for this brother and his wife and for his kids, okay, that they could resume having a sexual relationship. Now, so anyway, the thread that they started on the Facebook page where they shared that they're resuming sex because of Hyungjanim's Sunday sermon, that thread grew and people started discussing absolute sex issues. And one sister said she had a hard time thinking that Father was there. And I understand from my position that that's understandable for people who don't understand the fourth dimension. They don't understand timelessness itself. They don't understand resonance. Okay, so, they don't get that. Father represents the ideal. Before Abraham was, Father is. Okay? And so, the true woman wants to have a relationship with that true man. Okay? It's not even her personally. It's the archetypical Eve. It's the dream of Eve, even, that God had before he even created the first star, okay? Before he created the dust in the universe, okay? God, was dreaming about this object partner, Eve. And so Eve, all women, have a desire to be touched and penetrated and filled by this God. It's primal. It is primal. So, being immature husbands, we can't put our ego in the way. We should lovingly want her to be filled with all of God, not just the aspects of God that we have manifested thus far, but we should want her to have more. And that's the way I understood Hyungjin's sermon. But this sister on the thread, she couldn't understand that. She couldn't understand that there was anybody else in her bed but her and her husband, and she liked it that way. She thought that that's what chastity, that's what fidelity means. It's just the two of us. So I said, you know what? Shakespeare understood the beauty of things like sunsets, and one of these sonnets came to mind, and I shared the sonnet, trying to get her to, just understand the whole realm of poetry and resonance, how a man who passed away 400 years ago, Shakespeare, could talk about a sunset and make you, he can transport you, as if we're sitting on a ridge with him, watching that sunset. The power of poetry is fourth dimensional. It's artistic, and that's what God is. God is an artist, and in the DP, the first thing that God is compared to is an artist. And the original value of each absolute sex event is that it is meant to transport us back to a time before the creation of the universe. And that's why Father said, before God designed anything, he designed the sexual organs of Adam and Eve, okay? So this represents a meeting point to God that he dreamed about meeting his object partner, okay? So I really, I'm filled with a lot of passion at this moment, and I'm trying to tell you, this ego sex, like this your romance thing, that's from Satan, okay? Okay? If you're allowing that energy to be the genesis of your kids, you're shackling your kids, limiting them to limits that Satan is putting on them. It's not about your concept of romance that you inherited from Walt Disney, okay? Walt Disney is not your blessed children's father. Do you understand? You can't say that I created my kids because of a archetypical relationship that I inherited from Walt Disney. So my point is, your concepts of romance are just inadequate. It's God's concept of romance, that primordial dream of God. So absolute sex is meant to transport you to that place. And then I started realizing, I shared a realization that I had with this sister. I shared the poem, and I tried to share the realization that I had surrounding the holy handkerchiefs during the 3-day ceremony. Now, the 3-day ceremony was filled with advice, okay, about the 3-day ceremony was filled with advice. Don't write names on holy handkerchief, but don't confuse the man and the woman's holy handkerchief. So I'm like, if we don't confuse them, that's very deliberate. But we also cannot write names on them, denoting husbands and wives. So we have to create some kind of system just to comply with this directive. So this made me think it must be because our ego doesn't matter in the absolute sex place. What matters is Adam and Eve. The original essence of masculinity and the original essence of femininity is what we wash ourselves in during the 3-day ceremony, 3 days in a row. And that's what, see, when this sister goes, it's just me and my husband. No, it's not. Sex is never just two people. Either God is there in the originating position or self-centeredness is. Yes, even in the form of self-centered romance, you sisters. Okay, because it's not physical and gropey like men's minds, right? Men has to visualize, and I want to touch that, right? And you women, you visualize in a different way about, being adored by a male figure in some kind of romantic pursuit where his passion to achieve you as a prize is played out over some romantic story. Blah, 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 blah. That's selfish. It doesn't seem perverted like the man's will seems perverted or is depicted as perverted because men are visual and they want something physical. But women, you being adored as some kind of a singular prize in his life, okay? That's still satanic if, you know, you say that's all you want and you don't care for God's point of view. So just when you and your husband are engaging in that, the lie is that uh, there is no origin position. There is no origin division union. There is no origin position. There is no God position there. That's a lie. There's always four present during sex. Always. And it's God. It should be God, Adam, Eve, and the children that are present. Even the hope of the children are in your hearts. The children are there. But when you're ignorantly thinking that it's just you and your husband, what's really happening is your self-centered God of self-centeredness is orchestrating that event. Okay? Is orchestrating that. And he uses the fact that you're ignorant of his presence to get his will done. I'll say that again. Satan uses the fact that you're ignorant of his presence to get his will done. And this is why Satan didn't want absolute sex teaching being propagated. He didn't want it because he wants to remain in the shadows with ignorant people who think that it's just them as husband and wife having a relationship. He wants that. Because if you realize the four-position foundation reality of your sex life, then you're going to have to question, well, who's in the origin position? Who's got copyright over the results of my sex life? And you're going to have to think about who's got copyright privileges over my children. And you're going to have to define who then your children are in a conscious way, which hasn't been happening in the church, which is why BCs don't know who they are, which is why that sister by the pond, she got to chill when I said, you come out of your mother's womb looking like something that God, okay? So she shouldn't be in her late 20s, okay, early 30s, or I don't know how old she is. But she shouldn't get to that kind of age without knowing that she literally is a physical manifestation of God's hopes, okay? That means her 46 chromosomes should be clearly, consciously united with her in a continuous proclamation of I'm God's daughter. Okay? Even physically, my cells, my DNA is testifying to me about this fact. God has copyright privileges over this young lady's DNA. All right? Now, BCs don't understand this about themselves. So when they think about the importance of being a BC, they come up with all stupid stuff like we're supposed to walk on water and we're supposed to have, superior morality and we're supposed to miraculously have all this kind of blah, blah, blah. So Father is hammering 23 over and over and over again, pushing me to do this video to get it straight. Okay? So that's what I realized. I have to jump up and do this. Okay? And, my son, he has a little bronchitis that seems to be, bothering him for a couple of days. And when I'm thinking about this particular son of mine, when he was conceived, I wasn't a very strong husband. I was suffering with severe sleep apnea, and I was very fatigued in the day. And my wife just kind of felt love towards me in a very broken down situation, and she came above me and initiated sex with me, and when during that sex, God spoke to me and He told me, Jamal, do you know I live here? Meaning sexual organs that were united, and literally in the place inside my wife where the place where Father said where the king cell and the queen cell want to come together. And I said, wow. And then God told me, you're welcome. And then a few months later, True Parents were giving out awards for pregnant women for being pregnant. And my wife was pregnant with that child. So District 3 gave out this award on the day that my son was born. We applied for that True Parents Award, and we received that True Parents Award. My wife received that True Parents Award, and I had to go to the church with my other kids because she was in the hospital at that very moment with the child that she had born in the wee hours of the morning that day. So the very day that my son was born, uh, my wife got the True Parents Award just for being pregnant, okay? And so in my life, God is really pushing this on me. And, you're going to have to forgive me for daring to tell you that this is not just my testimony, okay? I am not the only person that is supposed to understand this. I am not the only person that is supposed to be feeling how important this is to God, okay? Because back in 2002, I was in the Sheraton National Hotel when Father was talking about the 3-day ceremony. And he said to us, "You don't know how important that ceremony is." And I shouted from the back of the room, "Thank you, Father." And what Father said at that moment, I felt. Anyway, Father said, "Are you the only one that should say thank you?" I mean, of all things that he could say at that moment, here I am trying to be with him in his declaration of how important the 3-day ceremony is. And I'm going, "Yeah, thank you." And naturally, when you're in a situation like that and you're trying to tell somebody something and they go, "Yeah, that's right." And then you go, you see, and you kind of join. But Father went one more level to chastise even me, right? So I'm like, wow, there's no reciprocity really, because Father is so frustrated with us as a collective, our collective culture, not fully appreciating the fact that our 92 chromosomes as husband and wife have been brought under the dominion of God. And we just don't see, we don't, we don't value it. Now, God has to get on earth. What's bound on earth is bound in heaven. And we have to have a physiological, scientific experience of lineage. So that means our DNA has to come into a conscious connection between our physical self, our physical DNA, and God's will. And that's what the Messiah is. The Messiah is physical salvation. So what does he do? He passes away at 92. Because that's what he is. He is the guy who brings 92 chromosomes together under the auspices of God. And if you don't understand that God needs territory, terrain in the physical realm, and you don't understand that God literally thinks about 92 chromosomes, literally, then you don't understand the divine principle. And the fact that our movement is impotent, and the fact that blessed children give away their lineage, give away their purity to Satan, they get naked with Satan and mix their blood with Satan, is because collectively we've been blocking this, that God cares about this. God cares about sex. God cares about setting the condition consciously with us of making children physically, being there. It is not a place for you and your romance, and it's not a place for you and your, sexual fantasy that you learned from Satan. We've got to stop beating up sex or blessed sex. We got to stop chastising our blessed spouses because they are not the thing or the person that Satan has promised us our whole lives that we should have. We should stop punishing God for not being what Satan promised us. Okay? We should wash our mind. Bible says, "Blessed are those that wash their robes, that they may enter the city by the gate." Okay? Outside that city are the fornicators, adulterers, okay? All those who will not abide by the rules of the city. But if your robes are washed, you can appreciate what you receive in the city. Okay? It's in the last book of the very last book of the Bible. Okay. Anyway, I hope you appreciate this sharing. I know I went long, and if maybe I'll post a shortened version. Let me know in the description below if you want me to post a shortened version because you want to share it with your friends and you think they can't tolerate the full version. Just let me know, okay? All right, thank you, brothers and sisters. I hope God will get into bed with you. I hope God will go back to the origin of your children's lives with you and reclaim them, okay? And wash your blessed family in His consciousness, okay? All right, so we're going to offer this as a prayer in the name of Jamal and Lila Johnson, Blessed Central Family. Aju.